Good morning, Vendetta.
Oh, morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good man, good. Life is good as always, and we are here at Blast, and I get to congratulate you on your fantastic victory over Liquid.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I have a feeling not many people expected that outside of the six people in the team.
The six people in the server on your side of the server.
Yeah, pretty much.
Have you been scrimming against them before, or were just really dialed in and ready for them?
We played Liquid a ton, but not on those maps.
Okay,
Um, like Liquid have been one of the teams that we've played the most on, like Overpass. So we actually thought that they would swing into potentially Overpass. We were actually just confident that they were going to pick Inferno or Overpass, and that they would kind of think, "Oh, we've practiced a ton versus these, so we're going to shy away from Overpass and then go into Inferno."
right. And so
We
no
did not.
Inferno.
We
That
did
didn't
not.
happen.
Yeah, we did not get the Vertigo pick at all. We were like considering picking Vertigo if they didn't allow us to have Nuke.
Okay, then that's what was happening then. Because if it,
Yeah.
all right. So sorry, don't want to cut you off.
Oh, no. It's just like we were surprised by it because if you look at the three maps that come through in the veto, um, that's three maps we're perfectly happy with. Nuke is obviously our most played and our best map,
Yeah.
as it is, and it's also a map that we've always felt like we can take down any opponent on. Even though we will have hiccups and lose matches versus teams who are not considered to be as good, we still feel like we can beat an Astralis, we can beat a Liquid, we can beat a Vitality, we can beat
Can you
whatever
beat a
on
spirit?
Nuke. That's gonna be the interesting thing, right? Like we've played a ton versus Spirit in the past,
Yeah, I bet.
uh, and we started out getting absolutely curb stomped every single time, and then it gradually became like closer and closer and closer to the point where like now we're starting to actually beat them sometimes in practice. And then we stopped practicing against each other.
Yeah, gee, I wonder why that happened.
Yeah. No, it's just with Spirit, it's obviously a slight nightmare because you have five really, really, really good individual players on that side, but they also play like so different from everyone else.
Okay,
Like
but let's hold that thought. I know I shouldn't be mentioning spirit obviously because we're jumping the gun because I wanted to just get a little bit more on liquid. Obviously, I want to hear your thoughts on the spirit match, and that's actually a lot of insight because right before you came on, we were looking at the veto, and it's like, oh man, like they can pick into dust too right off the bat, and you go to nuke, they're going to be good on nuke too. But obviously, if you guys have been pracking against each other on nuke, then maybe it's not as rough as at least the first glance what HLTV says. But like, okay, all right, liquid. So nuke goes according to plan. Then clearly you're prepped for nuke. You're ready for that, and you just railed them so hard in that first half. Like everything
that was a
seemed to
good
go
T side.
well.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Nuke. I've felt this way for about 2-3 years or something.
Right.
That Nuke is a T-sided map. Um, and I mean that simply because like T should be T-sided to the point where we're not talking about like 12-3 side T sides and that kind of stuff. But considering how poorly so many teams do on the T side, it shouldn't be that hard to always get yourself to 7-ish rounds. Like after we added Lecro, I think we've only lost, or there's only one half we haven't won on T side, and that's versus Havu in the Fun Spark Finals, which was a really really off day for us, and we still managed to get 7.
And is that because he brings more firepower, or does he add to the mid round? Like, because I mean, obviously he's got quite a bit of experience on the calling side.
No, I mean like when it comes to Lecro, I think I just in general it's an upgrade which makes it easier to win rounds, obviously. But when it comes to our T side, I just think we are extremely well versed. Like we have so much to play off of. Like we can run strats for days on that map. We're never gonna run empty. in terms of having an idea of what we want to do on that map, and it seems to be working out. So it's tough for teams to kind of figure out what's going on, how we utilize our walls and what we want to do behind it,
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. Nuke just feels like a really good map for us right now, at least versus most teams.
Yeah. Well, it seems. I mean, it just looked fantastic. Watching it was a pleasure. You guys just it felt like you couldn't put a foot wrong, and like you were in Liquid's head. The frustration on Stewie's face, dude. I thought I was watching Apex. You know?
Well,
I was,
he got the heap treatment, man. I feel so bad for people who play like on top of hut because heap does that so much. You just don't win out like somewhat fair one-on-one duels with them. So
mm-hmm.
I can understand that frustration. But I'm loving it.
Of
So
course.
yeah,
And then,
no,
all right,
it's
so everything goes according to plan on Nuke. You're looking real good. They started to fight a little bit back in the second half, but I mean, you had such a phenomenal lead at that point. You guys close it out 16-5. But then Vertigo, this is where it really felt like it started to get a bit tighter. And so we had a lot of speculation in the green room watching where we're just like, it feels like Liquid are respecting him too much. They're giving him way too much room. Is that how it felt for you when you were watching, when the boys were playing? Did it feel like you guys had a lot of room to do what you wanted, or was it something different?
not exactly. I mean,
Okay.
Vertigo is one of those maps that we had practiced against them.
Okay.
And one of the things that we had ran into in practice was the fact that Fallen kept going like yellow side, getting opening picks on us,
Right.
to the point where we're like, we can't do the basic like we can't do the opening that we are usually doing versus Liquid because and basically like any opper who's gonna play yellow a lot and kind of be looking for openings. So we basically like adapted some of the stuff that we do in our opening that limits a lot of the aggressive potential because it's something that we had started to end up playing against a lot because we like to send heap out yellow. We like to send Holzerk,
Right.
to fight on a ramp early, and then we started playing teams that actually denied us by changing up how they put down their smokes and molotovs and flashes, etc. in the very beginning of the rounds. And that stifled our CT side a ton. So we were like, okay, well, what are they doing, and how do we deal with this?
Mm-hmm.
And is this something that we should adapt to as well? Um, and then, like as a result of that, we made some changes. We talked some things over, and we noticed in practice that when we do this and this and this, there's less likelihood of aggression coming through. Like some teams will just kind of full send it anyway, but that's going to put them in a bad situation. Like you're gonna have to run through a smoke. Like you're gonna have to do something that's potentially more risk than a reward. And
Scrimmy.
like, yeah, and we're okay with that. Like if you want to dive through three smokes and two flashes and run into potentially three T's just kind of hanging out, then that's your prerogative. Uh, but
Right.
yeah, we can live with that. So it did feel like Liquid had the same experience that we had when we started running into it at the beginning. Like, yeah, you could fight through it, but most likely just going to end up with a one for one trade that doesn't benefit you all that much. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, do you want to lose that initial guy, go into 4v4 where now you have to play passive on the A bomb site and kind of let the T's execute into you? Like, that's not ideal. That's not as fun. So, yeah.
So all in all, which like are you feeling like you're in a really good spot with your Vertigo now, or is it just because it was Liquid and this is playing off the scrim? Like that's always the frustrating thing when you're casting or analyzing is that we don't have access to that scrim information, and so it's
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, why did they do this? And then obviously, if you like you just said, right, it's like, oh, we practiced against each other a bunch, and these are the tendencies that we picked up on and made adjustments for. It's like, oh, well, okay, obviously now there's the whole picture unfolds. So I mean, are you feeling pretty good about your Vertigo as a whole, or is it just like this was a really good pick against Liquid in particular, and you were ready for him?
Like our Vertigo is good. I think obviously the
Because this is your favorite map after all.
yeah, no, I think it's really good. I think our Vertigo now is worse than what it was,
Okay.
actually. But like people are gonna look at the stats and be like, "Oh no, they lost to Sinners. Oh, they lost to Windstrike." But like, yeah, so what? Sinners and Windstrike have played that map more than any tier one team has practiced it and played it in officials, and that's only from official games from both, like for Windstrike and Sinners part.
Yeah.
Like nobody plays that map more than them. So yeah, they're fucking good. Like Sinners has more one way smokes on that map than any any other team you could imagine. When you look at how you want to develop your vertigo, you don't go to like G2, Vitality, etc. to start yoinking stuff. No, like you go to the people who actually play the map the most because they're the ones figuring shit out.
Does it feel the same way to you? Like when I hear that, the first thing I think of is like SK on Cobblestone way back in the day. Do you remember that when it was like I think it was a Cillian, right? It was still Danish SK with Freeze and Cillian, and they just were like, okay, nobody wants to play Cobblestone. All right, we're gonna play the shit out of Cobblestone, and that'll be our pocket pick in tournaments, right? Because we'll have just practiced it so much that we're gonna be like light years ahead of everybody else,
It
and
was
we'll
yeah,
beat big teams on it.
it's like what Gambit did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the old Gambit lineup.
Dude,
Uh,
throwback.
yeah, like yeah. No, you just specialize on certain maps. I think Sinners has something like 42 official games on Vertigo the last three
That's
months,
right. Yeah. Hold on, I can
and
actually just
then
bring that stat up. Why not?
like yeah, all of Sinners map stats are bonkers. I think they're up to like 180 official matches for 2021 right now. Um,
Dude, they have 42. You're right. Wait, no, hold on. 39. Wait, what? Why does it say? Oh no, that's Inferno. They have 39 Vertigo maps in the
yeah,
last
yeah,
3 months.
yeah. No, it's insane. Like they have played that map so much, and that's only official games. Because and then you don't even consider in like, okay, have they played it in like open qualifier, like stuff that doesn't make it to HLTV? Do they play it in practice? And the answer is obviously yes. They they play that so much, and
28, 0,
obviously
and
they learn
11.
to
That's a record.
yeah, they obviously get extremely comfortable comfortable with it. So yeah, no, we lose to tier two teams on that map, but I swear to God, so many tier one teams would lose to these tier two teams on uh, on some of these maps as well. Like try playing like Scada or Windstrike on Overpass, for instance. Like that's not going to be an easy feat.
It's not, but I mean, this. I'm looking at your record right now. Biggest defeat 16-10 on Overpass to Endpoint. I mean, that's not too shabby. It looks like Overpass is you guys got a little bit of fight going over there.
Overpass was by far our worst map though,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not even close. Like yeah, no, that was a map we had to sit down and work on a lot, but it's getting better and better. Um,
It's interesting because
so
it's like distribution of map plays versus map wins is very.
yeah,
You
it's an
don't have
odd one,
many
right?
played Overpass in the last 3 months because you've only got 7, but then your win rate is 85%. It's like, okay.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a thing where um, we don't necessarily look to pick into it. We're happy if you want to pick it. We're happy if you want to play it as a third, but that's very unlikely. Overpass, I think Overpass was the least played map in Pro CS last year,
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was.
and because nobody specializes in it anymore, and that's partly because like for all the shit Vertigo gets for being a stale map in terms of how you build things up, where like teams only go A and they spam through smokes. Um,
The thing is, a lot of teams do only go A. To be
yeah, yeah.
fair,
Oh yeah,
Ben,
no,
like,
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we will do that as well. Like if we feel like we're getting a ramp, okay, then let's just take it. Like okay, let's play with that advantage that they're giving us. Because obviously you're only looking to win.
mm-hmm.
But it's like Overpass is extremely one dimensional these days, and I think that's one of the reasons why you're not seeing a whole lot of teams go into it. Because like T side, you either do a B execute or you do like a 5 or 4 man boost at the start of T spawn, and then you go into like just slowly walking up as a 5 towards A.
Mm-hmm.
you don't necessarily have the initial fights for like the teams try to hold on to utility a whole lot longer than what they did before as a T, and like they try to get away with more in terms of grabbing map control,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, you get a very stale T side and what's going on in terms of like how the buildup is. Because when we tried to fix our overpass, we looked through so many teams and we're just seeing them do the exact same thing. Like everybody has Spirit's B rush, for instance, on
Mm-hmm.
overpass. Everybody just copy pasted that. And they have no shame about it. And that there's a reason for it, and that's obviously because it is just an absolutely bonkers round that's extremely effective if you want to go B. But um, like when you're going towards A, it's like okay, we're all just gonna go toilet side and hope that we don't get spotted out. And if we do, we go on contact with a couple of simple smokes and nades, and like
Exactly,
that's it.
just stuff you can snap off real quick and move
Yeah,
fast.
yeah, and then you catch the rotation, and then like the entire like retake scenario, like coming from B into A, is really awkward if the T's still have some utility left, or right, like you Molotov off bank, you smoke off top of stairs, and if you don't have someone coming from underpass or something like that, then yeah, you're gonna have to bank on the one or two flashes that you have left as a retaking CT that they're gonna somehow find a majority of the T's, and then you still have the issue of obviously clearing out toilets if it's a toilet splant, and yeah, it's a rough one. So I don't think a lot of teams enjoy playing Overpass too much as of right now.
I mean, I guess the obvious question is like, what needs to change? Do you need to just kind of sit down and see like what can we do to change it up, or is it a map change that's necessary to
I
create more opportunity? Do we need to see a change to the map itself?
it's kind of tough because I don't think Overpass is a bad map. I just think right now teams have like no team has kind of figured out how to play the T side more efficiently on a consistent basis,
Mm.
or they haven't found a more effective strategy than kind of running it up mid. Um, so until that happens, or until CTs adapt in a different way that shut certain things down, um, it's probably going to remain pretty similar for a bit. But I don't think the map is bad. I still think it can provide some cool stuff and some innovation. So yeah, if we're like changing out maps or anything like that, just I wouldn't touch Overpass. But obviously, like everything should be subject to change depending on what kind of IDs come through.
I'm pretty sure. Well, like I'm just trying to think. How is your? I mean, the overpass issue. I mean, I'm not gonna ask you for your veto, but I'm not.
Oh
I'm
no
sitting
no
here.
no,
I'm
no
sitting
it's
here thinking like, okay, like if we're
oh
gonna
what we
go
want to play versus
through,
Spirit.
yeah, what's gonna happen with Spirit? I mean, it feels like Spirit are just gonna pick Dust 2. First chance. Unless you ban Dust 2, they're going to pick Dust
And
2.
if we live with us too, then
Yeah.
like I guess the vetoes aren't the most exciting thing in the world for a lot of these teams that have a permaban because Spirit doesn't play Vertigo.
I see exactly. So I was about to say you did so well on Vertigo, and you can't play Vertigo against Spirit. And well, you take Mirage out of the question, but at the same time, Mirage doesn't really seem to matter to Spirit much. So
Mm.
it's kind of like Dust 2. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting. I'm trying to figure out like where you guys want to go out of the. I mean, to be fair, it seems to me like they're going to pick Dust 2, and if you guys are so confident on Nuke due to your practice, right, that you guys just go Nuke and Duke it out. And
Yeah, like
then
for us, like when playing against a team like Spirit, I don't think maps matter as much.
okay,
Spirit are just gonna kind of do what Spirit wants to do, regardless. And and yeah, like they just have extremely good individual players that just kind of try to incite chaos, and if you can't stem that, then yeah, things are gonna get messy. Like they're extremely like they can get so snowbally, as seen like when they played Astralis on Dust 2, for instance. Like you can't get a grip on what's going on, what they're doing, and now they're feeling extremely confident that they're taking bigger risks at times. Like individuals are allowed to kind of do whatever their gut feeling says, and as a result of that. you know, you don't have this normal scenario where you're thinking like, okay, no, we've been playing heavy towards this side, so this team is probably going to adjust for that because Spirit can just send Dexter out mid or me or somewhere all by their lonesome, and you're gonna think to yourself like, surely they wouldn't do that unless they have something behind it. But ta-da, like they don't have anything behind it. They just have absolute confidence that this player is just gonna open shit up by himself.
He's just gonna hit shots. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of well. It's like the round I showed you a while back that Spirit did versus Sprout at
Mm-hmm.
DreamHack.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the kind of stuff you have to be prepared for. But like, how do you account for that in a normal round? You can't.
I don't think. Yeah, it's when you got teams and players that are just thriving and are confident, they're gonna do stuff that there's no rhyme or reason to it. And I guess
Yeah,
that's the yeah. I
it's
mean,
part of the beauty behind the Spirit team, though.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's what makes them extremely exciting to watch, and that I think Spirit are the kind of team that you can have them going up against an Astralis or a Vitality or a Navi, etc. And you're never gonna feel like too confident in whoever they're facing, just because Spirit can do that kind of stuff. They take the game out of normalcy and just do their own thing
No, you
and
guys are totally going Nuke.
then be all.
You guys are totally going.
No,
Just,
like statistic wise, like obviously everything like points towards us going Nuke.
I don't think train. Although train is actually, I think it's like if you can neutralize Dexter, I think you actually have a really good shot on train. Because yesterday I wasn't super duper impressed with the train from Spirit.
Neutralizing Dexter and his 700 FPS on train.
Yeah, only need to do that. You only need to neutralize a guy who's averaging like 132, 135 on train. That's all right. It's fine, easy.
Yeah, just I'll get right on it.
Yeah, just get right on it. Keep me posted.
No, but like no, obviously like
Yeah,
we're discussing.
I'm not going to press you on the
no,
veto
like
then, but it is
no, no, but
fun
like
to talk
everybody's
about
gonna have like obvious like there's things that look very obvious on paper. But
it.
of course we have our own mindset and our own ideas to how we want to do things for the matchup
Well,
and what we kind
that's the
of
thing. All right, mindset,
weigh heavily.
ideas. Like, how's the team doing right now after the win on Liquid? Like, that's got to feel good. That's got to feel pretty damn good because
Oh
you've been going
yeah,
after a big scalp for a while, and there it is. You managed to take down one of the teams I think is still what top 5 in the world right now.
yeah. No. Obviously that
Oh, no,
felt
not top
really
5
good.
anymore, but they're top 10 for sure. Yeah, number
I think
6.
they went from sixth, no fifth to sixth
Yeah, exactly.
on the day before we played.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, like obviously that felt really good. Because we're sitting there obviously practicing day in and day out and feeling to ourselves like, okay, when we actually play good Counter Strike, we can play really well. Like we can definitely hang with the best teams in the world. Obviously, certain play styles are going to be more suited towards us than others, but we definitely know that we have extremely good players who can make stuff happen. And like again, the margins between where we are at on a normal day and where these top 10 teams are at a normal
Mm-hmm.
day isn't that massive anymore.
Yeah,
um
it really feels that way watching.
yeah,
It
so like
really.
I think like if you look at like time put in terms of just practice and everything, a lot of the teams who are making that climb like Gambit are putting in more hours, and that's why you're seeing like that gap being slowly closed between the top and the sub top, I suppose. um but yeah, no, confidence wise, it's great because we knew we had it in us. So it's really fun for us to be able to do it when it actually matters, especially because we don't get a lot of chances like this. Like playing a blast tournament, uh, we're not getting direct invites to qualifiers there, and we're not a partner team, so
Mm-hmm.
we get a whole lot less opportunities to have these big matches. And obviously, when we get into it, we're going to come in with a lower seed. So in a single elim bracket, yeah, you have that one shot to give it your all, and you kind of have to make it count. Otherwise, you're back into playing all of these snow sweet snows, and and so on, where people are gonna basically look at the results and nothing else,
Hmm.
and take that at face value. So then you're thinking to yourself like, okay, I know they're done. They're still at the retirement home. But if you, I swear, if you sent some of these top 10 teams into a snow, a lot of them would have a really, really tough time winning it.
That's what I think, and you've been very out. Excuse me, you've been very outspoken on that as well. That the gap is really tight now in the top 20 to 30, even, and that if you're and that these online tournaments, like, I think because you've been saying it so much, and I think because of these results kind of speaking for themselves as well. Like, there's the opinion is starting to shift around on these, like, tier two. It's becoming more and more clear that what we had before this was, it wasn't necessarily that tier one was so much better than tier two. It's just that tier one played against tier one. It
Yeah.
was like you had two parallel tracks of Counter Strike. You just had teams that were playing against each other all the time, and so they played one style, and then you had everybody else who's playing the other side. But that didn't mean that those guys can't frag as hard as the other, as the tier one guys. It's just that they're playing two different brands of CS, one on LAN and one online. Except that now everybody's
Yeah.
playing online, and here we are.
And I mean, in addition to that, you do have like top 20 becomes, or top 15 becomes a bit of an isolated bubble.
Hmm.
So you have a 16 team tournament, and you do invites off of world rankings. And because of those tournaments being weighted so much more when it comes to getting ranking points and whatnot, because you have the highest rated teams in the world there, that rarely shifts unless you have a team going through open qualifiers and then creating an upset, right? Like that's how you get a shift in what teams attend different tournaments.
Right.
And going through open qualifiers is an absolute nightmare, as evident by well, us, Cloud9, the fact that Voivoda, now Fiend, managed to qualify for DreamHack Masters.
A
Like
lot
stuff
complexity
happens.
struggles back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, again, like open qualifiers are an absolute battlefield. And then instead, you can be invited to a tournament, go out in last place, losing 2 games in a row, and you still get more ranking points than what a team does for, let's say, winning, a Snow Sweet Snow.
Sure. Sure.
So it's obviously hard to make a shift in terms of what teams you get exposure to once you're out of that top 15, top 20 range.
Hmm.
So people obviously who are not going to be actively following the lower end of the top scene, I suppose they're not going to be aware of it, which is why people were surprised by the fact that Gambit were actually a really legit team. But that's not a surprise to anyone at all. Same thing with Spirit as well, right? Like they creep out of the woodwork and they start beating good teams, and it's not like that's a shock to people who've been paying attention, or like who've been playing against them.
I think
But
this is
yeah,
something though that, like, maybe I was thinking about it the other day, right? Where in sports, for example, I was actually talking to my wife about this. Like, in sports, you like, as a commentator, right? You can go to practice, and so you can go to a team's practice and you can watch how the team is performing, and you can talk to the coaches. And you can talk to the
yeah,
players, and you can get an insight, like, oh, this player's kind of hurt right now, or this player's feeling a little under the weather, or, oh, we're updating this part right now of our strat. Like, these sorts of things. Like, there's a level of access that's way past anything we have in esports, in actual sports. Whereas in esports, we're over here like, well, in Counter Strike, right? It's like, I have no idea what the teams are scrimming right now,
yeah,
barring having conversations like this one, where here obviously it's on the record, but like having conversations off the record, but then that's off the record.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you can't mention
absolutely.
any of that on in the stream, because that's obviously,
Hmm.
privy. You're privy to that information, but that's
Yeah,
privilege. You can't use that, right? So I don't know. It's like finding this kind of like tightrope where I was even tempted to, like, I don't know, like, how do we bridge that gap in a way that makes sense so that the teams aren't getting burned, because obviously you don't want to be screwing the teams over if they give you access,
yeah.
but that allows you to do better analysis, because it does feel like it, in the main narrative, like Spirit, Gambit, these teams are just, oh, they just come out of nowhere, when, like you say,
Yeah,
if you've been pracking against them, you definitely know that these guys are no joke.
yeah. It's really tough, right? Because it's like you mentioned. If you want to know how Manchester United is doing, well, their training field is open to media every
Yeah.
single day. So you just kind of hang out there and then you're seeing like, oh, this player is not practicing today. He's not playing today, or he's with the second squad.
Exactly.
So
Rabble,
maybe
rabble,
he's not
rabble,
playing
browse,
their
browse.
next
Like, what's
match.
that mean?
Yeah. So and you have all of that insight. And then if you have questions, obviously there's set press conferences and media meetings and everything like that. Like they pretty much have a media day every single day, so you can pry and prod and ask the manager like, so I noticed that guy isn't playing. Um, why is that? And he'll be like, oh no, he's feeling a little bit off, or we're testing some things for this upcoming matchup because we think that guy's going to be better versus this opponent, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't have anywhere near that kind of insight or opportunity to get that information as easy in Counter Strike. It's like you said, right? Like I could have potentially told you, before we went on here, that yeah, no, like actually we've only been practicing Mirage for the last 2 weeks as a pocket pick for Spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody would know that, and like I could have been like, obviously that's between us. So when we get into the broadcast, all you can do is like until it actually happens on broadcast, you could be like, oh, I think we might be in for a surprise in the veto,
Yeah.
and that's all you can put
That's
down
all it
to
is,
it.
though. Exactly. It's just like, oh,
Yeah,
well, I've got a sense that maybe things are changing. I don't know. You're trying to like lead up to
yeah,
it.
exactly. But you can't be like, yeah, no, like you can't start off the broadcast being or going out on Twitter, 2 days ahead of the matchup and be like, yeah, no, I spoke to Ven and he said like they've only been playing Mirage. This is like obviously that then like I would never talk to you again about what we're doing in that sense, right? Because we want to keep
Sure.
all the cards close to our chest and whatnot. So it's a bit of a weird one, and because I think absolutely it would benefit the broadcast and it would allow for the people on broadcast and also the viewers to get a better understanding of uh, how decisions are made within a team, whether it comes to veto or what maps you choose to play versus certain teams. But that's also one of the leg ups that you want to have versus an opponent as well, because they're also sitting in the blind.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll see, everyone likes to speculate about it, but most of the time, people kind of just, well, for natural reasons, go by what the map percentage is on HLTV says. So, like before
Most
our
of the
match
times
versus
they're right, though.
Liquid,
You know what I mean? But
yeah,
but like you
but
say, right? I'd be like, oh man, the obvious pick is Nuke, and I would favor Spirit in that. But then, of course, now there's that little bit of that little tidbit that you mentioned where it's just like, oh, but we've been practicing against them for a long time, and we're
yeah,
dialed in. So, but so I mean, there has to be a way. Obviously, there's a way to do this where it makes sense, where you're adding to the broadcast, but you're not giving it up in the sense that after the veto comes through, or that kind of information that you just gave me there, right? Where it's just like, oh, they've been practicing a lot. I don't know if that's something that hurts to make that known publicly, right?
oh
And
no, like for us, like I wouldn't say anything that I feel would affect us. And again, like
of
us
course,
playing
yeah,
Spirit a lot, that would, when I say like we did play a lot until we got to a certain point, and that would be like 4+ months ago.
yeah.
Since we scrimmed a lot versus Spirit. So again, like a lot of things.
A lot of things can change
Uh,
in 4 months, but
yeah, not only with us but also with Spirit. Like
mm-hmm.
maybe they weren't comfortable about the fact that we were doing better versus them in practice, so now they don't want to play us again in case we run into each other, and we're in for a surprise, right? When we play them on Friday, it's yeah, it's always a bit of a question mark going into a matchup like that.
It's such a trip, dude. I mean, I love it. I don't know. I bet the thing is, man, I feel like we can talk forever. That's the issue. But
Yeah, no, we definitely could, but we actually need to. I actually need to jump off because we're starting team talks in about 1 minute, and we're also
yeah,
doing like
11.
server testing for the match on Friday, so we can figure out where to play from.
I've got to look into Heroic versus Saw predictions. What do you think? Heroic versus Saw? Do you think Heroic will grab it?
Uh, I think people are going to be positively surprised by Saw. I
Okay.
still think we should expect Heroic to win. I think Heroic made fantastic changes. Shoes is one of the most underrated anchors in CS by a wide margin. So the fact that people were like, "Oh yeah, fuck yeah, refresh, that's great," and then we're like doubting the fact that they brought in Shoes was wild to me, because Shoes is just an absolute baller, even though his statistics is not necessarily going to tell you that.
Yeah.
He's just like safety himself, which is such a nice thing to have in a team. And obviously, Stavin and Tessis are going to do their thing, and Cadian's. Like
Cadian's
I'll be
Cadian.
honest, like in 2015, I didn't have Cadian pegged as one of the top form players in the world in 2021. Even though I really like Casper and we get along great. But I'm super happy for them. So yeah, Heroic definitely favorites, but you should expect cool stuff out of Saw. They're a good team. Stododo, solid player.
Ramen,
Uh,
Muterus. I mean, we know these names.
yeah,
They've been around
yeah,
for a while.
absolutely. They're the old heads. They're the second retirement home. Uh, so we have a sweet spot for them, and they have some exciting prospects in Stododo and so on. So that's going to be really fun. Even though I do think Heroic are favorites, and the Heroic also play a really suffocating style that can be tough to come to terms with.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get on it right away, then things can snowball. But no, so I should definitely put up a fight for
All
sure.
right. I'll mention the fact that you called him a second retirement home. They'll love that.
Yeah, no, just simply just off of average age because the Muterus and Roman does drag it up a little bit.
All
All
right,
right,
dude.
but
Well,
I
good
gotta
luck.
jump off.
Take care.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. See you later.
Later. Cheers. Well, there you have it. Baller. What a baller. I'm always so happy to catch up with Ven. I mean, long history with Ven. Man, early Nip TV, Room on Fire, TriCast, then analyst, and now coach. Coach for Dignitas, and with a massive win over Liquid. So really cool. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that, and be sure to follow, like, and leave a comment below. See you guys next time.